Hi, everyone. I'm Raquel Bozzi, Senior Director of Education and International Initiatives at Film Independent. We're a nonprofit film arts organization based in Los Angeles, but with members worldwide. Our mission is to champion creative independence in visual storytelling and support a community of artists who embody diversity, innovation, and uniqueness of vision. Today, I'm joined by two such artists. With me on this Zoom chat is multi-talented actor, screenwriter, director Kasi Lemmons, whose incredible list of credits include Harriet, Black Nativity, Talk to Me, Caveman's Valentine, and It's Bayou, which won a Spirit Award for Best Feature, and is part of the National Film Registry. She also happens to be a very committed board member of Film Independent. Thank you so much for everything you do for us, Kasi. Joining her is also Nicole Jefferson Asher, who has extensive credits writing for film and television, having created projects for Fox, Warner Brothers, HBO, and many others. And her recent credits include Love Beats Rhymes for Lionsgate and Self-Made, inspired by the life of Madame C.J. Walker for Netflix. She's a Film Independent Fellow, having participated in several of our artist development programs. I have known them for almost, I'm not going to say how many years.
Yeah, don't say.
No, I'll keep it quiet.
A long time.
Okay, I promise you I wouldn't expose you in any way, right? So I would not say that. Nicole and Kasi have collaborated on Self-Made, starring Octavia Spencer and an incredible cast, including Blair Underwood, Tiffany Haddish, and Carmen Ejogo. I hope I didn't.
Ejogo,
which premiered on Netflix on March 20th. And thanks God, because that was the weekend we went on lockdown and I watched it and I'm like, oh, we're okay. There was some kind of feeling of, yeah, we can persevere. So thank you so much. It was really inspiring and congratulations. And welcome for you two agreeing to join us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Pleasure.
First, I'm going to start by addressing the big elephant in the room. How are you guys doing in this COVID epidemic? Kasi, you're in New York or close to New York. How are you working? How are you feeling about all of this?
I'm on Cape Cod, which is our family home. We left to come for spring break when I took spring break from school at NYU. We were planning to come here for spring break anyway, and then we just never went back. And so I've been teaching from here, and I don't know exactly when I'm going to get back to New York. I miss it.
Oh my God! And how's the teaching going? I mean,
it's weird, It's good.
Are you a Zoom expert now? Are you going to become a Zoom teacher soon?
Yeah. I know a lot about Zoom.
Okay, great. What about Nicole? You're here in LA. I know a little bit more about LA, but how are you feeling about all this and are you working?
Yes, I'm actually in a virtual room. I'm doing a TV show for Showtime called First Ladies. It's an anthology series about the First Ladies of the United States. Our first season is Michelle Obama, Eleanor Roosevelt, and Betty Ford. So every day I'm on Zoom all day. It's been challenging. Look, I'm grateful to be working. I'm grateful to be healthy. I'm grateful to be safe. I'm grateful to be able to, be in a safe environment. So, that right there. I'm not going to complain about Zoom, but
Right.
it's certainly, it's definitely challenging. I think, the whole point of setting up a writer's room is so that people can work collaboratively, that people can, hash out ideas, people can, put all of your ideas up on a board and stare at them all day. And so a lot of the things that really lend themselves to, being in a writer's room, we don't have. Particularly our story is very non-linear, so it's really difficult to track.
Wow.
But again, I mean, I think that you know, it also at the same time, you know, we're committed to you know, really trying to, you know, make the best show possible. So I think that you know, sometimes adversity makes you work harder. So, you know, certainly that's what I've seen because I've dealt with a lot of adversity. But you know, it's not ideal, but it's certainly I'm grateful to be a writer at this time, you know, and I sympathize with the other collaborators in our industry who are out of work, and you know, the future is very uncertain.
Yeah,
I know. So do you hang out on Zoom the whole day? How does that work? Like the amount of time you would spend on a writer's Zoom, you're on Zoom? I can't imagine. You know, we are doing a lot on Zoom, but I'm like zoomed out by the end of the day. It's like, ooh.
Yeah,
it's more tiring, don't you find?
Yes, absolutely. And
I mean, I've been enjoying my classes, but it just like and I think that we're having a good experience, but at the same time, it's a little bit more. It takes more out of you. It feels like.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think that also it keeps me from keeping more in touch with people because I've spent 6 hours a day talking and sitting in one chair. And so that, you know, it's literally the last thing I want to do. So I've also, but it's draining in a way that, you know, interacting with people live is not.
So I'm even more grateful that you are here with us, Nicole. Thank you so much. So let's get let's dive in. Let's start with the journey of the project, actually. And where did you first find out about this incredible woman? I mean, personally, I had not heard about her. I'm sorry that you had to make this movie for me to find out about her. C.J. Walker, I mean, she was the daughter of slaves, and somehow she told herself, I'm able to do whatever I want, and became this first self-made millionaire.
Well, that's why we made it, so people that didn't know her story would be familiar. I mean, so don't apologize. That's great.
So when did you find out about her? When did the two of you first heard about her? And I mean, she's such a role model for any woman.
I think I wanted to make something about Madam C.J. Walker for about 20 years. I've been telling my agent, you know, I really want to do something on Madam C.J. Walker. And, you know, as time went by and I kind of, you know, would fall in and out of this desire to do it. And then Alelia Bundles wrote her book. And I spoke with her at a certain point about the book and, you know, my passion for the story. And then schedules, you know, I was working and I couldn't get on it. And then the next I heard of it, they were, the Holders were doing it with Nicole. And Nicole and I go way back.
I know.
Yeah, and I knew that Kasi was interested in the story. And at that point, Octavia, the Holders, the first thing they did was they attached Octavia to play her. So, you know, Octavia in a lot of ways, you know, hired us. And I remember, you know, one of our first conversations, the three of us, I mean, you know, Kasi and I go way back, and I knew she was interested in the story. So it was like, come on, you want to do this? And then when we met with Octavia, it was so great because we spent most of the conversation just talking about hair. And talking about
hair is a character in this movie.
Absolutely. And talking about, you know, my first recollection of her was, you know, getting my hair done on Saturday mornings, and my mom telling me, you know, pressing my hair with a hot comb and saying, Madam C.J. Walker, you know, invented the hot comb. And, you know, we all shared stories about that. And, you know, it was probably one of the less traditional kind of business meetings I've ever had, because we really talked about, you know, Black culture and hair and beauty and Black womanhood and nostalgia and why her story hasn't been told. And so I think it's, you know, I think that is the spirit in which we made the project.
It's so funny that your mother was like, she invented the hot comb. That was the mythology, right?
Wrong, right?
It's not true, but it was the mythology around her. It's what
most of my life, I thought that until I read the book.
So that precedes that curling iron. I mean, that's kind of the basis of anything that we do right now, I would say.
They were created at the same time. A man in France, Monsieur Marcel, so the Marcel waves, and he invented the curling iron and the hot comb. But they were originally created for white women. It was created in Europe, and so it wasn't necessarily optimized. Madam C.J. Walker kind of optimized it for Black hair, and she was an innovator of products that already existed, and she had amazing marketing savvy, and also really created a distribution model. Most people that were in the very early hair care industry were just kind of making stuff in their homes, homemade, doing their girlfriend's hair, their mama's hair. But Madam C.J. Walker was like, I'm going to build a factory, and I'm going to make sure that my product gets to every Black woman on this earth.
That's great. So the book came out what year, and when did it get to you, Nicole? Was the book published? The biography?
The book was published about 20 years ago. The holders gave it to me about 3 years ago.
Okay, and then you and Kasi started collaborating. Did you collaborate with Alelia as well, or was she part of the development process with you guys?
Absolutely. I mean, once we had scripts, we gave them to, we had some initial conversations with her, and certainly we used the book but the book we use the book as a launching point. Certainly there are many fictionalized characters. There's a kind of a magic realist, interstitial, that none of that is in the book. The book is the factual documentation of Madam CJ's life. So, I mean, it's certainly, that's why it's inspired by the life of Madam CJ is in the title. But once we, had scripts, then Lilia read everyone and gave us notes, and, gave us her thoughts, and, and certainly shared a lot of, as Madam CJ's main archivist, she has access to a lot of resources and a lot of information, and even furniture and pictures and things like that. Wow. So she was enormously helpful.
So did you and Kasi collaborate on their scripts, or was there like a proper writer's room? How were those scripts developed?
There's a writer's room. We collaborated on the pitch a bit, but it was really, this was Nicole's, Nicole created the show. And so really after we had kind of developed the pitch together, and then we pitched it to Netflix and they bid, I was off doing Harriet, and there was a whole writer's room going on. So I kind of came off the movie, and there were scripts.
Oh, right. Great. And how was the pitch to Netflix? What did you take for a pitch at Netflix? I mean, I'm sure a lot of filmmakers are all wanting to know how does that go? What did you take? How was that pitch, and was the reception?
Well, we took Octavia Spencer and LeBron James. That's probably one of the most significant things. But I mean, when the holders approached me about the adaptation, what I pitched to them was doing a non-traditional biopic, and to use, the idea that Madam C.J. Walker was a woman ahead of her time. And I wanted to use, like I said, magic realism and interstitials and all kinds of different things to really show that she was a visionary, that she thought differently, that she saw the world differently, and to be able to communicate that on a really core craft level, as opposed to just saying it or making speeches about it. So that was the initial concept. And that was shared. The holders just happened to have a meeting with Spring Hill Entertainment and with LeBron's company, and not even really, they just told them about the project. They didn't really go to them to be involved, and they were like, "Oh, we want to be involved," and it was like, "Oh, we're good," and they're like, "No, we really want to be involved," and so that then they came on board and developed the pitch some more, and me and Kasi fleshed it out, and it we pitched it to a few places, and Netflix really just felt like the best home, that they got it, that they were very excited about the idea of doing a historical figure from kind of a very contemporary point of view, and really were excited about telling Madam C.J. Walker's story.
That's great. So how did you land in the right format? Was this ever like, was this ever conceived as a feature, as a limited TV series, a longer format?
I think there were 10 shows, right? We have
Yeah,
10.
I mean, it honestly, it came down to, it was pitched as a limited series, and, you know, the budget kind of dictated 4 episodes, budget and scheduling also too. You know, so it was a roundabout process, you know, for that, you know, and it had, there was a lot of things involved, but I will say that I think that 4 episodes is a really interesting, exciting length that I'm glad is really starting to become a thing. You know, when they see us as 4 episodes, there's more programs like that, and I think especially for telling a biographical story, you know, it gives you more freedom than just a 2-hour movie. You know, most people's lives are very difficult to kind of capture in just a 2-hour movie, and, you know, and sometimes 10 hours is too much. So I think, you know, it had its challenges, but I do think that 4 hours is, you know, I think that's going to be a new kind of format that we see more of in the future. I know Netflix is excited about it.
So it never was you never wrote it as a feature at all?
No.
Okay.
It was always a limited series.
So you had to do some condensing of a lot of things. So
yes.
How was the process of finding like the right balance between the personal and the historic context of the times? I mean, she's such an inspiring and expansive character. And you cover some of the historic, but you stay more, I believe, on the personal. So how did you set to do that? What questions were you asking yourself all the time on what would stay on the story and what would have to go for you be able to compress it and still remain some of the context but stay with her?
Yeah, I mean, it was always, you know, it was always her story. It was always her point of view. And it was, you know, that was very important to me. I think, you know, we're just now starting to see more programming that is, you know, very solidly from a Black female point of view. And particularly because Madam C.J. Walker's story has been, you know, really, you know, is long overdue for a telling or for a cinematic exploration. You know, it was really important to stay that way. I think that what was really challenging though was there were so many interesting things in her life.
Yeah.
And she had such a big life. I mean, you know, I kind of feel like we barely scratched the surface. There was so much of her political activism and her philanthropic endeavors and her childhood, you know, that we just didn't have the time to cover. So, but really what it came down to was people know her as she's the first self-made female millionaire in the United States, you know, white or Black or of any color. And so what was really important was to show how that happened. How did she, you know, create her product? How did she create her business? And how did she become a millionaire? So that was really the lens that we, you know, and the filter that we kind of narrowed it down. But I mean, it was hard. It was very hard. I mean, she really had an interesting life.
Such an expansive story. So Kasi, you have directed a ton of features. You have directed very few television, right? So how was this different for you? And how was, you know, the vision conceived and communicated, and how was working in delivering that vision with another director? I understand you work with another director as well.
It was interesting. Developing it with Nicole and being kind of in service of Nicole's vision was, you know, it was a great pleasure because Nicole and I go way back and we collaborated together before, and, you know, I really trust her, and I trusted her storytelling and her instincts for the story. And, you know, when you come onto a show like this as a director, even though I was attached from the beginning, you know, I understood it to be Nicole's vision. At the same time, being the pilot director, because even in a 4-episode, you know, there's a pilot, then I was responsible for setting the tone and the look of the show, you know, so I had a lot of responsibility that way. And it was great. I mean, it was a wonderful group of people, wonderful women, can I say?
Yes,
You know, it was amazing. And I had just come from a movie that had been run by women, but this was on Self-Made. We had women in so many key positions that we would have meetings, every key position. So we would have meetings and there would be no men in the room. You know, I mean, I never experienced that before, where, you know, the production designer and the DP and you know, hair and wardrobe and everybody. You know, we were all women. So that was kind of my great pleasure. And then Domain was you know, I was the director, executive producer, and Domain was the producing director. So we got to work together through the whole thing to kind of shape it with the showrunners and Nicole and our producers. And, you know, it was definitely a collaborative effort. And that's in a different way than a movie is. You know, but I really enjoyed it. And just to get to work with this group of people and this cast, you know, it was such a pleasure.
Would you be inclined to do more TV now that you have been spoiled with your collaborators?
Yeah, I definitely would. I'm definitely open to it.
Actually, the visual language is beautiful. Everything works together so beautifully. And I was telling Nicole when she got in, her background looks like it belongs on the set. So
yeah, it does. It does.
So, you know, as you were talking about making it contemporary, about her forward thinking and everything falling into that, I have a question about the music, which I noticed, you know, this combination between very traditional scoring and some jazz, and then these kind of very contemporary songs. Does that is a reflection of that choice that you made in the beginning to make it more contemporary and forward looking, Nicole?
Yes. You know, we definitely, and we had first of all, we had a fantastic music supervisor, Morgan Rhodes. And, you know, in the meeting, you know, in her interview, I mean, one of the things that we both had kind of talked about was you know, creating a unique sonic landscape that was like basically completely filled with Black female voices. So we used all Black female singers from around the world and across every genre of music. And, you know, again, to kind of, you know, build the bridge that, you know, I mean, Madam C.J. Walker, one of the reasons why, you know, people love the show is because her story is still relevant to us today and relevant to so many people around the world. And so music was one of the ways that we really tried to build that bridge and fill that out. And she did an amazing job of finding voices also that haven't been overused, or that, you know, like that, you know, sounds that are familiar, but, you know, different somehow, or up and coming artists and music from the past. I mean, so that was really one of the high points of working on the show was creating that. And actually we have a Spotify playlist if anybody has Spotify.
Oh, great.
A lot of the songs are on the Self-Made playlist. So
where could we find it?
It's if you go to Spotify, just put in Self-Made. There's a playlist.
Appreciate it. That's wonderful. So I'm very intrigued about her daughter Lydia, and I understand the woman who wrote the book is like her great-great-granddaughter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And her artistic, playful, queer sensibility, was that in the biography?
Well, it's interesting because it's in the biography, but not certainly not to the extent that we conceptualized it. I mean, look, A'Lelia Walker was dubbed by Langston Hughes as the joy goddess of the Harlem Renaissance. And to me, first of all, if you think about the Harlem Renaissance and you think about all of the amazing personalities and characters, if she was the joy goddess, then, you know what I mean? Like, then she must have been out of control. And so that to me was one of the foremost character traits that I, was thinking of in creating her character, was that this was a woman who was, in the 20s was very, very rich, in a time when women couldn't vote, when Jim Crow was, part of, was the, national law, when there were so many strikes against Black people. She was living, she was the joy goddess of the Harlem Renaissance.
So that's the next project. I'm sorry, that was my next question. Are you thinking about making her story next? I love her character.
Right. Well, yeah, no, it's a great story. And so I think that, it was really important also, I think, to show that she was not the same woman as Madam CJ. And that actually that was part of, their difficulties, that part of what Madam CJ worked so hard to do was give her a better life. And she was able to do that. And then she ended up being a very different person from Madam CJ Walker. And, I think in a lot of ways they had a hard time understanding one another because of it.
Very different. Okay, so we're running a little bit out of time, but I want to get to a couple of questions here. Question for Nicole. Could you talk a bit more about First Ladies? Will each episode focus on a different First Lady, or they intercut within an episode? Has any casting been announced? The world wants to know who is playing Michelle Obama.
I can say that it has been announced. Actually, it's on deadline. So Viola Davis is playing Michelle Obama.
That's amazing.
And probably the only other thing that I can say is actually each episode will feature all three women intercut. So it's kind of similar to The Hours, if people remember that movie, or it's, we juxtapose all of their lilives kind of thematically throughout each episode. So watch for it 21-ish, 21-ish, yeah.
Oh, we all want Michelle back.
Yeah.
So bad.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's
her back.
I miss her every day.
So, there's another question which actually is kind of the same question where I really wanted to end, which is, I want to talk a little bit about Madame C.J. Walker, not only as a role model for girls and women to encourage them to believe that they're able to do whatever they want, but also as a mentor and philanthropist. This idea of mentorship and women empowering each other and lifting other women up with them. So you both have experience being mentors and or being mentored. Can you talk about that? Kasi, you have been forever, I've been in my job for a long time, and I know who to call when I need a good mentor. Can you talk a little about that? And then you, Nicole, can you address that too?
Yeah, I've been doing it a really long time, and I've had some time to kind of think about it and reflect on it as I've worked with, seen these women like Nicole, come into their full power and have incredible careers, and to have been a part of that in any small way, just in terms of giving advice or encouragement or, whatever I could do. I've really been able to see kind of the fruits of that labor really pay off, as Madam C.J. Walker did. It's the best feeling in the world. It's my own. It's my way of approaching the revolution. Honestly, it's my way of helping to fix the problem that exists in Hollywood of this incredible disparity where as everyone knows, there are just not that many women working. They're ridiculously disproportionate to who we are and our presence in this country. And half of all people are women, but like 10% of all directors, right? That makes no sense. And then women of color, which has kind of been my my specialty, and it's very empowering, and it keeps me optimistic.
And here's part of the question that I did not ask actually is, any notable mentors for you? Did you have any mentors that you could kind of like remember what you're doing for others right now that you look up to?
I've been at it so long, and when I got in it, there just weren't that many people doing it.
The Harriet Tubman.
It's kind
of Black filmmakers. I mean, I can jump in there because Kasi was my greatest mentor, and I mean, I'm forever grateful to her. And I'm so glad that I think mentoring is important because it really shows you all of the things that you can't learn from film school, that you can't learn from a book. I mean, I think one of the greatest gifts and lessons that Kasi gave to me was just how to be a woman of integrity in this business. Just to how to even beyond the basics of taking meetings or any of that, but just, how to make good choices, how to treat people fairly, how to be true to yourself, how to be true to your visions. And, it's an incredibly difficult business, especially if you don't come from a background where, you've been in the industry or have, a lot of support systems, as, many women and people of color don't. So, I mean, it's hugely important. And I think, it had made all the difference in my career to be able to, watch someone and to ask questions and to be able to, have somebody to look up to. So again, I try to do that as much as possible as well. And I think we all need to do that. I think we need mentors, not just in this business, but just in life. It's a really underdeveloped, skill set in our culture. And it's, I think you can see the results of it. People are running around lost.
Hearing you say that, Nicole, is so much more meaningful and beautiful that the two of you have collaborated in this project. It's like really, really beautiful.
It is, yeah. No.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kasi.
It was my pleasure.
I think this is the perfect way of ending. As you know, Film Independent is all about building these bridges between mentors and helping each other. I want to thank you both for sharing your experience with us today and always, as you do in this. And I want to thank everybody in the virtual room for joining us today. We at Film Independent are working tirelessly to bring you closer and continue our job building community during these hard times. And to find more about upcoming programming, please visit filmindependent.org or follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Maria.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Maria. Bye, Nicole. Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.